In sports, and I guess life in general, being more well rested tends to be an advantage. I mean, take it from me, someone who did not sleep particularly well last night because someone else in the house didn't sleep very well and made sure no one in the house slept well. Anyway, as a result, I would not say that I'm at my best right now as I record this video, even if it has been now 5 days since the last one. But too much rest can also not be a good thing. Again, take it from someone who is very much not a morning person. Putting aside all my complaining about too much or not enough sleep, I guess I just have sleep on the brain right now. For the Kraken, also having 5 days off may not have served them particularly well in this game. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where, unfortunately, the Seattle Kraken, after their 5-day Christmas break, come back with a loss at home to the Calgary Flames. In a game where, yes, Calgary was coming in on the second half of a back-to-back, something the Kraken have seen a lot as of recently, but while it was in their favor leading into the Christmas break against teams like the Jets and the Blues, this time there may have been a little bit of rust to knock off for Seattle with the 5-day break, and the Flames were definitely fresh after having just played the night before. And it showed. And to make matters even a little bit worse for the Kraken at the very least, this game against the Flames is the first of, well, 3 of the next 4 that could be very important come this back half of the season, and especially the race for a potential playoff spot, as the Flames, as well as the Oilers, who the Kraken will play twice now in the next 3 games coming up, are teams that the Kraken could be competing directly with for one of those playoff spots in the Pacific Division. Now, at the moment, there's still plenty of hockey left to be played. The Kraken still have 49 games left, and while they did just get jumped in the standings by the Flames, fortunately they have a few games in hand on just about everybody, at least in the Western Conference anyway, or at least the teams that actually matter for the playoff race in the Western Conference. So in the end, while a 3-2 loss against a good team, which I still think the Flames are, doesn't feel that bad, and certainly doesn't feel anywhere near as bad as the loss that led into the Christmas break did. Even if the Kraken got a point in that game, they gave 1 point away. And this loss is to a team that the Kraken could actually be competing for a playoff spot against once we get down to the last stretch run at the end of the season, at which point these 2 points, or I guess 3 if you want to include the blown one to Vancouver to lead into the Christmas break, could end up making a pretty big difference. And without any significant changes to the lineup as we get into the game, as we'll see over the course of it, this is one that the Kraken definitely had their chances to win outright in, and ultimately end up losing because of just straight up sloppy play throughout the vast majority of it. The second period I did think went generally pretty well for the Kraken, and even spurts of the first period, but as a whole this game was a pretty sloppy one, as shown by the fact that they end up giving up a season high 44 shots on goal. Weirdly enough, the previous game against the Flames was the previous record in this season with 40 shots on goal, and those 44 shots are second all time, with just 1 game last season against the Canucks having 46 shots in that game, that the Kraken have given up more shots. Probably could have said that better, but basically, it's the most shots the Kraken have given up all season, and the second most they've ever given up in franchise history, and they give up a lot of shots to this year's Flames for some reason. The good news, at least, is that the one player on the Kraken that did seem like he was fresh off of the Christmas break and maybe wasn't knocking off a whole ton of rust was Philip Grubauer, as he had a fantastic night in net for the Kraken. Except for maybe the first goal that goes in is one that would have been nice to see him smother and get a whistle before it ends up finding its way in. This one just kind of bounces around in front of the net for a while after a shot from the point that Grubauer made a save on, but he isn't able to get a glove on top of it. The puck eventually rolls off of his toe out in front of some net, and a Flame stick finds it first and just kind of shoves it into the net behind him before he can figure out where the puck has gotten off to. And so the Flames get off to the 1-0 lead. Of course, for the Flames, being on the second half of a back-to-back, they had their fair share of sloppy play in this game as well. Again, as I said, gave the Kraken a number of chances, including a breakaway for Sprong right before this goal, and then also sending the Kraken to a power play right after it. A power play which, again, for the Kraken, I don't think it's something they really practiced or even talked about over the last 5 days, or at least I hope not anyway, because this was one of the uglier power plays we've seen all season. It doesn't go anywhere. Well, it doesn't go anywhere for the Kraken anyway. It does almost lead to a shorthanded goal from Mangiapane, who gets a couple of chances off towards the end of this Kraken power play. Fortunately, the Kraken don't allow a goal shorthanded, but unfortunately they waste what would end up being their only opportunity in a fairly one-sided officiated game. And look, I'm not going to try to blame the officials for this loss by the Kraken, even if the Flames do get 4 power plays in this game, the next 4, and also get their first one here towards the end of the first period on a Yanni Gourde breakaway that wasn't a breakaway because apparently he had a hooking, which I think was a fairly soft hooking call that allowed him to get the breakaway in the first place, which the refs are going to call even though they didn't call a hook towards the end of the Kraken power play, probably because it would have sent the Kraken to a few seconds of 5-on-3 and the officials really swallow their whistles once a team's on the power play in the first place. Either way, they don't call anything against the Flames there, and then make a pretty soft call, I think, here against Gourde that prevents the breakaway. The Flames don't end up scoring on this power play, and the Kraken do actually get a pretty good shorthanded chance that Geeky, I think, probably could have shot on a 2-on-1 shorthanded break. Instead, he tries to go for the pass and puts it past Tanev, like well past Tanev, and that shot, or that attempt, goes without a shot, so the Kraken, even when they get their chances on the penalty kill, having some issues actually connecting offensively. With maybe the one exception being Jordan Eberle, as the Kraken, right after killing off this power play, get into the offensive zone, and it's actually a very nice play by Dunn to keep the offensive zone in and along the boards. He wins a puck battle there and keeps a puck from getting out of the offensive zone. Instead of going for a change, he makes that play. It gets the puck down behind the boards where Eberle gets to it. Eberle gets the puck out to Donato, who's found his way in front of the net. Donato gets a shot off. It's saved, but then the rebound comes back out to Donato, and he buries that rebound shot to give the Kraken their first goal of the game and tie things at 1 with just about a minute left here in the first. So you know what? At this point, sure, it was a bit of an uneven first period for the Kraken. And yeah, they have looked a bit sloppy to this point, but they get this late equalizing goal at the end of the first. And while they have allowed 14 shots on goal, which is a lot for a team that averages 27 shots against for a full game, they've got 14 shots of their own, and they have the momentum going into this first intermission. And they're even able to keep that momentum to start out the second period as less than a minute in. This time, it's Eberle himself who keeps the offensive zone, getting a puck off the boards along the side, out to another Kraken player who's crashing the net from the blue line, getting a shot off, and of all people, it's Jamie Alexiak who has that puck from the blue line out to right in front of the net, and as McCann crosses in front of him, he fires off a shot short side and buries it into the back of the net to give the Kraken the 2-1 lead. And where the Kraken just a minute, or I guess a couple minutes ago as far as game time is concerned, it's been almost half an hour as far as real time is concerned. Either way, they've quickly turned a 1-0 deficit into a 2-0 lead. At which point, the Flames take their time out, and while the Kraken do continue to press over the next 9-10 minutes of this second period, it is the last time the Kraken would score. So in the end, this did feel like a timeout pretty well used by the Flames, which is something I will say I'd like to see Hackstall do a little bit better job of. He does end up using the Kraken timeout in this game. He just does it with 19 seconds left. Anyway, the Kraken do maintain momentum in spite of the Flames timeout, but eventually that momentum gets flipped right on its head with the second Flames power play of the game. This one comes thanks to a high sticking call on Susi, which I don't care what you thought of the officials in this game or how much of a homer you are, only maybe Jack Edwards could look at this one and not think that Susi earned it. He very much gets the best of this high sticking call, and honestly probably got a bit lucky that it wasn't a double minor. Basically, the only way they call those is if you draw blood, and yeah, Susi, I think, got lucky to not draw blood here. Either way, it doesn't turn out well for the Kraken, as just a few seconds into the power play, a shot on goal is tipped nicely in front by Kadri, and he gets lucky that it goes right through the 5-hole of Grubauer and into the back of the net to tie the game at 2, and also effectively, like I said, flip the game on its head from a momentum standpoint, where the Kraken had pretty much everything going in their direction up to this point in the second period, and really for pretty much the entire rest of the game, everything, or most everything, goes the Flames' way. It really is from pretty much this point on that defensively for the Kraken, it continues to be a bit of an adventure. Really all night, it was not a great game defensively for the Kraken, as they had spurts of playing pretty well and not allowing chances, keeping everything to the outside, basically doing all the good Kraken defensive stuff that we've seen for most of the season so far. But they would also go through large periods of time and chances where they would just kind of let the Flames walk the puck up to the net and then get good chances off. Again, Grubauer was having a fantastic night, coming up with a number of pretty good saves throughout the course of this game and really keeping this from getting ugly a couple of different points. And then offensively for the Kraken, well, up to this point, they were creating their chances and some pretty good chances offensively. In fact, I think it was just before this second Calgary goal that the Kraken got not one, but two more breakaway chances, both of them for Brandon Tanev on the same shift. But unfortunately, as we know, both times with a chance to give the Kraken a 3-1 lead, Vladar does come up with the saves. And Tanev was a bit frustrated that he couldn't get that goal in front of his brother playing for the Flames. Again, though, following this second goal, all of this offensive pressure that the Kraken had been able to create, especially during the first half of the second period, and chunks of the first, really went missing for pretty much the entire rest of the game, as the Kraken really only got 2 or 3 more somewhat sustained stays in the offensive end, and other than that, they were relying on rush chances, which were pretty few and far between, and even at that, some of them they were passing up on the shots and looking for one too many passes. Something that we've seen be a problem when the Kraken have trouble getting the offense going. I need sleep. A few minutes later, we get probably the worst series of calls by the refs, or missed calls and then a call, as they miss a couple, or at least one pretty blatantly bad missed on the Kraken, as the Kraken entering the offensive zone had at least a roughing, if not an interference against them, that goes completely ignored by the officials. And then just a few seconds later, they call too many men against the Kraken while they aren't touching the puck. And yes, that can still happen, but as long as you're not touching the puck, there's a lot more leeway given. And while it was a bit of a rough change by Seattle, I think this was a pretty bad call by the officials to go with the too many men here. Fortunately, the Kraken do kill off the power play. There's tons of shots on goal, and the Flames have more than enough opportunity to score, but the Kraken do kill it off. And then they get a little bit of a late press here at the end of the second, but they aren't able to score on it, and we go to the third, where although the refs still aren't doing the Kraken any favors and do the Flames one more favor, the Kraken aren't doing themselves any favors either, as they can't get any momentum. The Flames are also kind of having some struggles getting anything going in the offensive end, as both teams are constantly just turning over the puck to each other in the neutral zone for a while. But eventually the Flames do get their 4th power play of the game, and while they don't score on this power play, again, they create a number of dangerous opportunities and almost score. And then right out of the power play, they get into the offensive zone. A shot off on goal is blocked well out in front by, I think it was Beniers that blocked the shot. Either way, it isn't fully blocked, and it bounces past Beniers, just kind of trickling along the ice. And of course, it bounces right to Jonathan Huberdeau, who, in spite of the fact that he has had a bit of a slow start to his Flames career, is still a very talented goal scorer. He looks down at the puck like, ooh, piece of candy, picks it up, flips around 180, and gets the shot off on goal. Meanwhile, Grubauer, who was ready for the shot from the point, is now trying to make the best of a bad situation and isn't able to get fully set up in time like he would like to be, and so the shot beats him to give the Flames the 3-2 lead, which they are able to hold through the rest of the game. The Kraken take a long time to get enough control of the puck to end up pulling Grubauer once the time comes. They only end up with about a minute of 6-on-5. They do get kind of one chance, maybe two, at tying the game. They aren't able to make it happen, and the Flames hold on to win this one 3-2. So again, in the end with this game, it was honestly a pretty sloppily played game by both teams. But in the end, the team that played a little bit less sloppy is the one that ends up winning in the Flames. The Kraken definitely looked like a team that was a bit rusty after maybe too long of a break, while the Flames looked maybe a bit tired after the back-to-back, but at least had a little bit more of those hockey legs back under them. Yes, the Flames might have had a little bit of help from the officials, at least enough that I felt it was worth mentioning, but when the Kraken allow 44 shots on goal and play the way they did in the defensive end especially, I don't think you can blame it on the refs, even if the Flames weren't able to take full advantage of every mistake the Kraken made. Where, as I mentioned again in the beginning, the Kraken allowed the most shots on goal they've allowed in a single game all season, just beating the last Flames game where they allowed 40 shots in that one, allowing 44 shots in this game, Grubauer coming up with 41 saves. So again, a night where he tried to bail the Kraken out, just wasn't quite able to do it because of their sloppy play, especially in the back half of this game in the offensive end. Still, though, it's something the Kraken are going to have to figure out the next time they play the Flames, as they've now allowed 84 shots in 2 games against this team. Not to mention the fact that those are also the 2nd and 5th most shots allowed on goal in a single game in franchise history. So I think it pretty much goes without saying, at least defensively, The Kraken definitely need to figure out how to clean some things up for the next game coming up here on Friday, as in this one they'll be playing the Edmonton Oilers, a team who have at least two players I think most people know will happily take advantage of too much space if it's afforded to them in the defensive end. The Kraken play the way they did for large periods of this game against Connor McDavid, he's going to have a game. And just like was the case in this game against the Flames, and now maybe even more so, that game against the Oilers is going to be a pretty important one for a team in the Kraken that looks like they could be making a push for the playoffs in this back half of the season. Fortunately, they have those games in hand, but when you have those games in hand, you have to get wins in them. And these are the games that they need wins in. Even with, though, all of that leading to a frustrating result and return from the Christmas break for the Kraken, this game still was not one without its positives for the team. So as we get to the 3 stars, obviously the first one, as I've mentioned a couple of times now, was Philip Grubauer. He was, at least to me anyway, without a doubt, the best Kraken player out on the ice, and definitely kept the Kraken in this game on more than one occasion, especially as we got through the back half of the second and into the third, and really all the way along in that third period. The second star in this game is going to be Jordan Eberle. He gets 2 assists on the night, assisting directly to both of the Kraken goals with primary assists. And hopefully the great play that he had even outside of that, those 2 assists in this game, can continue now with 3 games against his 2 former teams, 2 of those against the Oilers, and the game in the middle being against the Islanders. So yeah, hopefully he can continue what he did in this game in those, and maybe get Matty Beniers involved so he can get a little bit more points for his Calder race. Either way, great game again from Eberle. And then the 3rd star, that's going to go for me to Ryan Donato. There weren't a ton of other options. Beniers had a decent game. Yeah, I don't know. Donato is, I think, certainly deserving of this 3rd star here. He obviously gets on the board with that first goal, his 8th of the season, so definitely starting to pick up with goal scoring for Donato. Tanev also had a pretty good game, and especially since he was playing against his brother, I almost certainly would have given him the 3rd star had he scored on one of those 2 breakaways, especially if the Kraken had at least with that won the game or at least gotten it to overtime. That doesn't end up happening though, so I think Donato's worthy of the 3rd star. So one more time, that's Grubauer the 1st star, Eberle the 2nd star, and then Donato the 3rd. Other than that, I'd love to know what you guys thought of this game, who your 3 stars were down in the comment section, or how your Christmas break did. Did you get any sweet Kraken things for Christmas? Hopefully it went better than the 2 bookends to this Christmas break by the Kraken. Certainly this one a little bit less frustrating than the way we started the Christmas break. Either way, hope for a better game here coming up on Friday against the Oilers, and then against the Islanders and Oilers again. So if you have made it to this point, obviously I'm getting a bit rambly now and starting to lose my train of thought, so it's time to end things. If you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below to help support the channel, so I'd appreciate you using them. Until that game against the Oilers and Connor McDavid for the first time this season, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.